John Muller from the JP Muller Group, and today we're going to talk about, I think, a fairly common challenge or thing that people are trying to do. A lot of times people model data in a sheet and they have a lot of columns. For example, right now we're moving to a new system where we have to take product information from a number of places and cobble it all together, relate it all together, and prepare it so we could upload it into a new system. There are a lot of people working on the product data, a lot of columns or attributes, and there's a glossary or a data dictionary also in there, so people know what to place as values and content into those columns. So the question came up, well, how do I know if somebody inserted a new column and that we have to add something to the glossary? So I said, well, let's try that out. So I'm going to show you a few things, and I took it some steps further, which I'll discuss. But first, we have a tab here called Glossary, and here we have a number of fields, and we have their descriptions. The next tab we have is the actual data, and you could just see it's regular data, product ID, name, description, color, price, typical kinds of things. And the question is, we want to know that when somebody adds a new thing, let's say a height and width, that something's been added. Now, picture this having, 100 columns. It's easy to see that it's added here, but if you have 100, you don't know when somebody's inserted something. So the first thing we did is in cell A, we put a conditional formatting that shows in red when the number here is greater than 0. And the way we do that is we count how many are in this missing from glossary, A2A, right? So what is that looking at? It's looking at this tab. This tab essentially does the equivalent of a left join, if you will. So if you look at the second row here, there's a big formula. And essentially what this is doing, and I'll tell you in kind of layman's terms, and then you could pick apart in your own time the various components of this query. It's a query. And what it's looking at is it's looking at all of these headings as if it were a table in a database. And it's comparing against all these glossary items. It's left joining. It's looking for instances across row 3 here where there's an item, a word, that it doesn't find in the glossary. Hence if you look at the actual join, select column 1 where the second column is not found. And in traditional SQL, that would be a null, right? So that's basically what it's doing. All the other stuff here is ways of manipulating. You'll see transpose, which takes a row of data and turns it into a column of data, right? A row of headings, column of headings now, and compares it to the glossary, etc. And that produces these. Notice I have height and width here now. Just to keep me honest, you'll see that, if I add another one, it'll automatically go here. So let's do weight. Right? Go back. Now we got 3. And I could simply at that point, if I'm the person working on this, I could copy these and go to the glossary and paste special and values. And I could put, whatever I want here for new glossary data. And now when I go to product data, notice I'm no longer showing new headings. The last thing, well, actually not the last thing, but let's look at this conditional formatting just so we know how that works. Conditional formatting. And I'm going to make this red as long as I'm going to take a look at the first 2 characters in column A, because I'm assuming I'm not going to have more than 100. I guess that's a possibility, but for now I'm just using the left 2 characters, taking the value of that, and as long as it's greater than 0, I'm applying that red formatting background. All right. So what's one little cool thing I added to it? The whole reason for this is that people are going in and they need to know what these columns mean. And there's many people going to the spreadsheet. So what I did is I added some script. So if we just click on heading here, you're going to see a pop-up that pulls the long description from the glossary. And if you want to see how that works, the code to do that is here under app script. And you could open up the app script and you could see I have an on selection change, which is a built-in function that automatically fires when you click on any cell. And first I check to make sure you're on the product data tab and that you're on row 3, which is where the headings are located. And then I take a look to see if the value in there is not blank, meaning there is a heading. Because if I click on an empty, column heading, I don't need to do anything. And then what I do is I call this find glossary entry. And I have, or function. This function acts similarly to a VLOOKUP function. It basically keeps going down the list of glossary items till it finds a match, and then it returns a message box that lets you know what that definition of that field is. So I hope you found all of this interesting, and I'll put a link to the actual sheet so you can make a copy of it in the video description. Thanks for joining.